Hey everyone, this is Friedel Hucker AJ Raven, and I'm back with my recap and review of Animal Kingdom Season number 4, Episode number 13, which is titled Smurf. And you all, for those of you who were wondering about whether or not this show was able to go on without Smurf, well, as far as my opinion goes, it can. So much happens in the finale that I can't wait to see what happens to the Codys when they come back for a 5th season. It was so amazing. Yes, Ellen Barkin was a big part of this show, but I mean, things have to come to an end, and we still will have the Smurf flashbacks. So the episode opens up with Smurf, and she's smoking a cigarette. She's not necessarily taking a lot of care of her twins. And Lani comes in, and she brings Smurf's food. Smurf isn't actually eating either. So it turns out that Jed is basically holding Smurf hostage, and Smurf wants to get out of here, and Lani is like, you know what, Smurf, Jed doesn't want you to leave. Colin would have liked you to stay there, and it's good for you. And Smurf is like, Colin hated his brother, and I want to leave. And she actually asks Lani, why is she holding her hair? So you already know that Lani is going to help her escape. So in the present, we see Joshua going to meet Jade, the fence that Smurf used to work with, and Joshua tells Jade that he has like $1 million in gold that he wants moved, and Jade is like, I can't work with you anymore. I don't work with new clients. And Joshua is like, I'm not new. I mean, we used to work together through Smurf. And Jade is like, yeah, that's the thing. We used to work together with Smurf. Now with Smurf gone, she was such an influential person. There's a big void, and I'm just waiting to see who ends up filling the void. And she necessarily tells Joshua that she doesn't want to work with him again. So the boys are at the house, and they're thinking about when the preppers will come after them. And Darren even asks Pope whether or not their father is dead, and Pope is like, yeah, that person is dead. So Joshua comes in, and he tells everyone that they need to have a memorial for Smurf, and they need to tell everyone that even though Smurf is dead, the Codys still exist. They need everyone to realize that the Codys aren't going anywhere. And Andrew is already annoyed by Joshua, and now he has to also deal with his emotions because of his mother dying. And Andrew just doesn't want anything to do with Joshua, and he tells Joshua that they will find a new fence and they won't be having a memorial. And he actually tells Joshua to lose the sunglasses. So Craig ends up giving the passports to Darren, and he's like, Darren, you're going, when will you be back? And Darren basically tells Craig that he's not really sure if he is ever going to come back. And he also tells Craig that he'll make a good father to Nick. And yeah, it's basically goodbye. So Joshua goes and meets Andrew in the kitchen, and Joshua wants Andrew to do something because, again, he doesn't want the Codys to disappear. And Andrew is like, you always have an angle, Joshua. You're always planning something. And again, Andrew, also because after what Angela told Andrew what Joshua did to her, Andrew just wants Joshua gone. He's like, I need you to leave. I need you to pack your bags and go. You aren't a Cody. So in the past, baby Andrew is crying, and Lani comes in and holds little Andrew, and she's like, this is a warrior. And Julia is comparatively a very timid child. She's sleeping through the entire thing. And this is also where Lani ends up helping Smurf, and she hands the keys to Smurf, and Smurf is like, I'm going and I need you to come with me. And Lani is like, I can't leave Jed. She can't leave Jed. She can't leave her children. So basically, Smurf picks up the twins and just goes away. So Angela, after having an argument with her ex-boss and taking the money that she's owed, she's coming out of the diner that she used to work with, and she ends up meeting this woman, and this woman tells what was her name? Angela. Yeah, Angela. I literally forgot her name for a second. So this woman ends up telling Angela that Mike is out, and basically Mike is Angela's brother. And remember how we thought that Angela must have snitched on someone in order for her to get out of prison so early? And it turns out that she ended up snitching on Mike. And the woman tells Angela that Mike is angry with her and she doesn't want Mike to end up harming her and going to jail because of her. And Angela is like, why don't you go and tell Mike that she's with Andrew Cody now? And the woman is like, Cody's? After Smurfs died, the Codys don't mean anything. And of course, Angela, being the survivor that she is, goes into panic mode because she really thought that being with Pope is what's giving her protection. So over at the house, this woman comes in and she has a delivery and Angela accepts it and I'm like, yep, Angela's going to do something. And it turns out that it's Smurf's will and the will is for Craig, Darren and Julia. And Angela ends up telling the woman that she's Julia and she signs the paper and she takes the wills. So Craig goes back home to meet Ren and the baby and he's looking at the surfs, but because he has a baby, he has more responsibilities now. He can't just pick up a surfboard and go. And Ren asks him if he brought the diapers and Craig is like, yeah, I did. So Joshua is trying to figure out what he's supposed to do now that Andrew has kicked him out. He still has plans to take over all of Smurfs' business and he's at the bowling alley that he bought. And he's just worried. So Darren comes back to his bar and outside the bar, everyone is paying their respect to Smurf. And yeah, Darren's kind of weirded out about it. So he goes in and the bartender tells Darren that there's a man in this office that that's waiting for him. And Darren asks if it's police and the bartender is like, no, he's not the police. And Darren goes in and yep, Billy's back after stealing the money from Darren. He's back now. He gives some of the money back to Darren and he's like, after hearing about Smurf dying, you're the only one I've got left and I want us to build a relationship. But Darren, because of everything that he has to go through because of Adrian, he doesn't have any time for it. So anyway, over at Pope's residence, Kris Jenner ends up walking in and Kris Jenner is she has cooked a lasagna and she hands the lasagna to Pope and Pope is like, who are you? And Kris Jenner is like, I used to work with Smurf, I used to know her, she used to handle my rent. So she's basically threatening Pope and Pope is like, you know what, tell everyone you know that we'll be having a memorial today for Smurf. And Kris Jenner is like, yeah, I'll tell. So she basically came in to see what the Codys were up to because again a void has been created and they are waiting to see who will fill the void. So over at Billy and Darren, again, like I said, Billy ends up giving Darren the money and he wants to rebuild his relationship with his only, I guess Darren is his only son, I'm not really sure. And Darren again doesn't have time and he basically tells Billy that he won't be here because he's going away and he wants Billy to leave his office. So over at the bowling alley, Angela comes in to meet Joshua and Joshua is like, what are you doing here? And Angela is like, I'm your guardian angel, Joshua. And she tells him about the wills and how Smurf basically left her children nothing. And I'm like, even though she didn't leave her children anything, at least she ended up helping them score a $1 million worth of job, like in as the last job in gold, basically. But anyway, yeah, the kids have nothing and basically everything has gone to a woman named Pamela. And I was like, Pamela? You mean Pamela as in Pam from Smurf's past? This is going to be so interesting. And turns out that yes, Pamela is the same Pam that we end up seeing in Smurf's flashbacks. So after leaving Jed's residence, Smurf goes to Pamela and she asks Pamela about working together because that's an offer that Pamela made to her. And Pamela is like, you just had your children, why don't you come back to me in a few weeks? And Smurf is like, where am I supposed to go? And Pamela gives her some money and she's like, go back to Jake. Whatever you did, Jake will take you back. So she ends up finding Jake after, I guess, a few days or a week. And Jake takes Smurfs back. And you know what? This is where it hit me. That this is the same Jake who's Craig's father. Did we know about this before? Did we know that this was the Jake who was going to be Craig's father? Because I sure didn't. But anyway, this is Craig's father, you all. So yeah, Billy and Jake are talking in the present and they're talking about how they ended up meeting Smurf and how she was very sexy back in the day. And I was like, you know what? Ellen Barkin still looked sexy as Smurf in this show. But anyway, Billy tells Jake that he got the good one. Darren is the best son. And Craig he has a nice heart, but he's kind of not very smart. So during the memorial, we see this random guy walk up to Craig and he tells Craig about how he misses Smurfs because they hooked up one time, and it was a very awkward conversation. So Craig goes in and he meets Pope in the kitchen, and again, Craig, the actor who plays Craig, is so tall, like he's bent over a bit, and only then he can meet the actor who plays Andrew, Sean Hatosi, in height. Anyway, he asks Pope who all these people are, and it turns out that they're basically cops, other gang members, and they're just waiting to see what these Cody children do now that Smurf is dead. So Pope notices Billy and Jake come in, and he grabs Billy and drags him away. And mind you, Jake still hasn't told Craig that he's his father. So anyway, in the garage, Billy ends up telling Pope that yes, he messed up the relationship, but Pope needs to remember that that Smurf loved her very much, even though she wasn't great at showing it. And this is also where Billy ends up telling Pope that he met Darren, and Darren is talking about leaving. And I was like, Billy, did you really have to tell Pope that? Now Pope's going to rush over to Darren's house and he's basically going to kill Adrian. And yeah, he goes away alone. So I really like this shot about how this screening, this frame for the camera, like through the Jeep's window. Anyway, Pope tells Darren that he knows that Adrian has been talking to the police, and Adrian first tries to lie, but he can't lie. He couldn't continue to lie, and he ends up telling Pope that yeah, Adrian has been talking to the police, and I'm trying to protect him. And I was like, is Pope going to kill Adrian? But no, thankfully Pope isn't. He's actually happy about Darren leaving, because I guess he doesn't want Darren to continue living the life of a Cody, especially because Pope noticed that Darren didn't want anything to do with this ever since he was a child. Because remember, Darren ended up running away with Adrian somewhere, and he ended up coming back after a while. But yeah, both of them hug it out, and yeah, it was a good acting moment. Growth for Pope, you all. So over at the Cody house, Jake ends up talking to Craig, and basically again, he still doesn't tell Craig that he's his father, and Craig is like, what happened to your leg? And Jake is like, yeah, your mom shot me. It was a misunderstanding about stealing some money, and yeah. Anyway, Craig is like, I need to go meet my son, and Jake is actually very excited about having a grandchild, but again, he hasn't told Craig that he's his son, and I guess we'll end up seeing more of the relationship in season number 5. So turns out that Joshua ended up asking Frankie for help, and Frankie is able to track down Pamela, and turns out that Pamela was caught and she has done prison time, and Pamela has two children, Phoenix and Robin. One's a boy, one's a girl, and I guess Robin is clean while Phoenix was also in jail. And you know what, now that Ellen Barkin is gone, I don't mind having another older actress kind of take her place, with Pamela coming in and facing off with the Cody brothers. It will be very interesting to see how that dynamic works out. And Frankie, after helping Joshua, she's like, did I pass? And Joshua's like, yeah, you did. So I guess we'll end up seeing these two working together in season 5 as well. Again, like I said, this episode ended up laying a lot of plot points that we can expect from season 5. So it'll be interesting to see where everything leads. So over at the house, Billy is having a conversation with the rest of the dudes who hooked up with Smurf. So Pope is in his room and he's ignoring Joshua's calls. Joshua basically wants Pope to meet him at the bowling alley, and Pope doesn't want to go. So Angela comes in and she's like, Pope, Joshua's your family, whether you like him or not. And the same way my own family wasn't my family, my biological family wasn't my family was Julia, my family was Joshua. And I love my chosen family. And she also tells Pope about her brother being after her. And so she's basically manipulating Andrew in order to help her own self, which will be interesting to see how that develops going into season 5. So yes, the moment comes, we see Adrian and Darren getting ready to leave, and you could just tell that Darren wasn't going to leave. He can't leave his family, and this is where a conversation happens where Darren basically tells Adrian that even though he loves Adrian very, very much, he can't leave Adrian alone. And Adrian is like, you know what, if you love me, I'll stay with you. And Darren is like, no, you can't. You'll go to jail, and I won't be able to protect you. I wouldn't know if you died because someone killed you in jail. It was a very great acting moment. So good for you, Mr. Geekiary. Good acting from you. And then this conversation ends with Adrian realizing that he has to do this alone, and he tells Darren that even though he loves Darren very much and that he'll likely be in love with Darren forever, Darren is the worst thing that happened to Adrian. And I'm like, you know what? I understand that. Now, I do know that there are a lot of Adrian and Darren fans, but I mean, come on. Their relationship is toxic. And Adrian just can't live in the environment that the Codys have. It's too dangerous. And Adrian, no, it can't happen. Now in Shameless, it's different because Ian and Mickey are basically from the same kind of environment. They both know how to do the work that's necessary, and they can survive. They can protect each other. But in the Adrian and Darren situation, Adrian can't handle all of this. And also because I'm a fan of healthy pairings, I was okay with Adrian leaving. I'm not really sure if he'll return for season 5. I mean, basically, if you look at it, Adrian is always leaving, you know? He's always leaving every season, basically. But yeah, it will be interesting to see if he returns in season 5 or something happens, or if Adrian moves on and Darren moves on. I would actually want them to move on and maybe meet each other down the line, maybe in season 6 or 7, who knows. But yeah, I was okay with it because Adrian needs to get out of here or else he'll go to prison and die. So yeah, the scene ends with, again, like I said, amazing acting from Geekiary. He's just crying, sitting down, and Adrian and Darren. But you know what? Apparently, according to the producers, the flashbacks that we're going to have of Smurf is going to do a time skip. They're going to jump ahead in time, so it'll be interesting to see when Darren is born, and it will be interesting to see when Adrian comes into his life, and Darren kind of ends up falling in love with Adrian as a child. So Pope goes to meet Joshua in the bowling alley, and he ends up telling Pope that Smurf ended up writing them off to will and they don't have nothing, and she ended up giving everything to a woman named Pamela. And he's like, do you know Pamela? And Andrew is like, no, I don't know who Pamela is. And Joshua is like, you need me, Andrew, or Pope. You need me. I can help you run this business because I'm smart, because Smurf taught me to. And yeah, Pope decides that, yeah, because Joshua's family, might as well have him back in the house. So Darren goes to meet Greg, and Greg is like, where's Adrian? And Darren is like, yeah, he's gone. Again, it will be interesting to see what happens to Darren in season 5. So they have Smurf's ashes in a box, and all of the brothers are sitting around it, and they're like, what are we going to do next? And Pope is like, we have a job to do. We need to remind everyone who the Codys are. And in the flashback, we see Smurf picking up Andrew and soothing him and comforting him. And in the present, we see Angela walking up to her brother, and Mike is like, what are you doing here, Angela? And she actually has a gun. And Angela is like, I'm with the Codys now. And Mike is like, the Codys mean nothing now that Smurf is dead. And right on cue, Pope, Darren, Craig, and Joshua walk in, and they end up beating up Mike and his gang, I guess. And even Angela ends up hitting her brother. And I'm like, you know what? At least Angela knows how to fight. Adrian wouldn't have been able to do this. But yeah, so the episode ends with Andrew walking away after hitting up Mike and his gang members or whatnot, and this is where the episode ends. It was a fun episode. Like I said, I was a bit worried about where this show is going to lead after Smurf's death. But with introducing Pamela in season 5, another older actress who knows how to do the job, it will be very interesting to see how the Codys end up fighting her or defeating her. And yeah, I'll be doing a written review of this for the Geekiary. The link to that will be down in the comment section below as soon as the review goes up. Let me know what you thought of Animal Kingdom season number 4, episode number 13. down in the comment section below. I enjoyed it. I'm looking forward to season 5, and yeah, it was fun. It was fun. Very enjoyable. So yeah, until next time, stay happy, stay safe, stay blessed, and I'll see you guys later.